Hi everyone. I have been sitting on the astrology of 2021 for quite some time now. I mean, we're here, it's almost springtime, and I've been thinking in particular about the signature aspect of this year. And for those of you who aren't familiar with like astrological forecasting and the sort of like long-term or year at a time scope of things, the main way that we do this as astrologers is by choosing outer planet aspects that are, or seeing outer planet aspects that are coming into perfection over the course of one year. And typically there's like one or two that stand out. Sometimes there's really only one that dominates. And this year, it's the combination of Saturn and Uranus. And it's the squaring of these two planets. So there's a tense aspect between Saturn and Uranus. And this is something that I've been seeing come up in client work for sure, seeing in my own life absolutely. And so I wanted to share some of the thoughts, some of the reflections that I've gathered over the course of the first few months of the year. You know, it's tricky sometimes. There's this expectation, I think, that astrologers like know what's coming all the time, and we definitely have some foresight, but nothing beats experience. Nothing beats being steeped in the energy of the time and reflecting on it from that more marinated and steeped, well steeped perspective. So that's what's been happening for me, and so I can share a little bit about my own experience with this aspect. And Saturn and Uranus don't seemingly mix, because you have Saturn, who's the planet of the slow and the steady and the structural and the traditional, and then you have Uranus on the other hand, who's bringing in this upheaval and rebellion and revolution and doing things quickly and doing things with an innovative spirit, things that have never been done before, pushing past limits, taking risks, finding independence, and really bucking the systems, saying F you to whatever structural conditions are prevailing at a given time. And with these planets meeting by square this year, it's a little bit like oil and water not mixing. There is a significant push and pull, this traditional resistance, perhaps, the past being intractable, the past being fixed in place and difficult to alter, while on the other hand, Uranus is doing everything that it can to bring in alterations to what Saturn is trying to do. And how I've seen this play out in people's lives at an individual level, I'm not really talking about the sort of social dynamics of it. It's about the pace of change. Uranus has been in Taurus for a couple of years now, and it's getting to the point where that energy is familiar, and the changes that are coming into people's lives in whatever area Taurus is are becoming more concrete this year. Maybe even frighteningly so. Saturn is helping materialize those changes that have been brewing for a while. But I've seen this tension of the pace of that manifestation. A lot of times when people have Uranus transits, or if they have Uranus very prominently in their birth chart, there's this leap into difference. It doesn't matter what we're going, sometimes it's as if it doesn't matter what we're going for, as long as it's different, that'll do. Because there's a discomfort with sameness, so we leap into difference. And sometimes we leap very quickly, sometimes we leap without thinking. I remember at my Uranus square, which is like a transit that everybody has around the ages of 21 or 22, I lived in Chicago for several years, and I I was gonna move. I remember sitting on a park bench one day, and I like just thoughts racing and racing, like making all of these plans. Like I just have to be somewhere else. I have to be somewhere else because I don't even know why it was at that time for me. There was nothing like seemingly in my life that was a problem that with where I was living, but nevertheless, I had this insatiable urge to be somewhere else, anywhere else, as long as it wasn't there. And fortunately, I'm very glad that I did not make that decision to move because it would have been really unwise. It would have been putting this need for something new ahead of more practical concerns in my life. And I see this happen with Uranus transits all the time, where we just need something new. And what's tricky this year is that newness is in sight. It's right there for the taking. And it's exciting. That's one of the things about Uranus, is that we can step into this more authentic self. And when Uranus offers that, it's very hard to turn down. But Saturn, what does Saturn do to this? On the one hand, it makes it easier to access. Not easier to access. It makes it more realistic to be able to make it real, yeah? But it's not easy. And why it's not easy is because Uranus doesn't do foundations very well. Uranus does cosmetics very well. Uranus forces the surface change, and then the foundational change comes after. If I get thrust into a new situation, I will have to be different. But it's not that I was different, which caused me to leave. It's that I needed some kind of circumstantial change in order to induce these foundational changes that I was seeking. And so with the Saturn-Uranus square this year, there is this push and pull between the cosmetic, what it looks like, what does change look like, versus why am I changing? What are the foundational things that need to be altered in order for me to build anything in my life? And so what can it look like to honor both of these energies at the same time? I think it's a lot of waiting. As uncomfortable as that is, with this energy happening in Taurus and Aquarius with Uranus and Saturn, it feels to me like there is a potential for punishment is the word coming to mind. I mean, Uranus is it's the deity associated with like being, if you're thinking Prometheus was like punished for sharing the god's fire, right? And forever just like being tortured essentially. And so how I reflect on that for the Uranus archetype in general is that a lot of times that speed of innovation is outcast, right? It's frowned upon by the world at large. And so what I'm sensing with this square between Saturn and Uranus, it's that if you go too fast, there will be repercussions. Because Saturn is demanding slowness, demanding attention to the roots, not just the changes that appear to be a certain way, that appear to be taking you into this new dimension of your life, which is so exciting. Not just that, but why am I doing it? Being more thoughtful about the core issues that are being resolved, perhaps, through these changes. Uranus doesn't like to wait. And Saturn is all about waiting. And so, as much as this is a push and pull between the conventional and the traditional, between the new and the old, it's also a push and pull of pace and needing to wait longer than you would like, needing to suppress, I don't like that word, needing to be present with the why. Because that is where the actual healing can happen. It's not these sorts of like throwing caution to the wind and becoming different. You're always going to be you. You're always going to be you. You're always going to have these structures of feeling that make you who you are. And you will always be able to find situations where that is enough. There are other ways to think about this outside of the individual. Some of the ways that I've been thinking about this socially, similarly about this kind of like cosmetic versus foundational question. Taurus is a sign where Uranus is transiting right now, is a sign that's ruled by Venus, and Venus has to do with social convention and social decorum and doing things in the appropriate way, yeah? And with Uranus transiting there, it brings some instability into that. It brings uncertainty into how we are to behave with each other. And Uranus being the planet of technology, certainly technology has a huge part to play in bringing these questions up. So we can change suddenly in terms of how we interact, the kinds of things that we have to say, the kinds of things that we feel called to say, the kinds of things that feel respectful. That's part of the Uranus and Taurus journey as I'm seeing it. And then there's this other part with Saturn and Aquarius, which is asking other questions about the systemic factors that might be different from what things appear to be, the changes that we're making socially at the level of appearances. If we change in appearances, that's change, but is it lasting? Is that getting to the core and the substructure that has created things that need to be resolved in the first place? So the idea here is just that, how to do both at the same time. And I think that it's about being slow, being thoughtful, not leaping into cosmetic changes when it might be more prudent to examine things that are less visible, less Venus, yeah? So that's what I have to say about Saturn and Uranus, and I'll add that I'm going to be doing horoscopes for each of the rising signs for the Saturn-Uranus square. Now, a horoscope is something. I guess maybe less so a horoscope is what I'm going to be doing, and more like what I did the Mars retrograde, which was like kind of a horoscope, but also just like, you know, getting thinking about what this experience is like. So I'm going to be doing that this week. And if you want to talk about this aspect and where it's falling in your chart, I am doing a Pisces season special, which is 40% that you can save on all of my services, from birth chart readings to elections. So come and talk about, like in a weather update, we can talk about the Saturn Uranus square and maybe some strategies for navigating that in your own life. Or just check out the horoscopes, and we'll see what resonates from there. Thank you so much.